Woke up this morning at University Tire here. We're on kind of a busy road right across the street from a dealership that doesn't really show up that well in the sunlight here. But as you can see, we're really lucky that we showed up last night when there literally was no traffic in the parking lot at about 6:15, 6:30, even though it was pitch dark. Sue did a wonderful job lighting the back for me so I could stuff Myles in there. I actually drove into this parking lot and turned left and drove this way and then backed up. Had to go around these cars that I'm looking at right now. And I mean, you can see it's literally, they've only been open 5 minutes. And it's like a freaking freeway in here with all these cars. Don't know why it's so popular here, but I guess I'm glad I'm part of the club. Well, here's the start of the job, and of course you have to take the front tire off. You'll see in the background there that disc, that's a Centramatic balancing disc. I'll talk about that later in the video. Here's the 20-ton jack. You'll notice where they had it positioned on the coach, which was correct according to the Newmar instructions. Here's me, typical job. You'll notice leg crossed, slight tilt there. That's about as hard as I worked on it. What James is doing here right now is he's assembling the toolkit that's required and really needed to be able to compress the tire down, to be able to get the Tyron Tire Bands that I had in my front tires for the last 2 years. I had no trouble with them. I felt very safe having them on my rig as an additional layer of safety. But I've decided to, now that I need front tires 2 years later, that I am in fact going to upgrade to the Rettroband run flat tire safety device that you'll see shortly. It's quite expensive. The $4,500 list price on it pretty much will scare a lot of people away. But for anybody that's watched my channel for a while, they know that I'm pretty paranoid about a lot of things. One of them is coach fires, and another one is tire blowouts. So I'm going to open my wallet and have these put in, and I felt a responsibility to show everybody a little bit deeper on how easily these can be put in and how beefy they are. You'll see James here now is finally bringing out the Tyron Tire Band. It basically occupied the wheel well so that the beads of the tire had no room to flop around in during a blowout. Looks like you've got this barrel nut here that is connected by a threaded rod, and this threaded rod on this side, and this barrel nut, and it's designed so that when you're rotating this screw here, which also has a locking pawl, that when you rotate this, it'll bring them together or separate them. Now, these pins go in these holes on each of these halves. These two are for one wheel, these two are for another wheel. So you see I have two of them for the front of the rig. And this gadget here will eventually go in this hole and this hole, and we'll draw these together. These are the Tyron bands that were in the rim. The rim that's on here, this sat actually in the well of the rim. And what its job was when it was sitting in the well of the rim, was it took up the space for this bead to not fall into if you were in a blowout situation. So here's a good example of what the Chan Man had, what I had, the Tyron Bands, which were put down in the well to reside and take up the depth that's in this area, so that the tire bead that's here in a flat condition, it has nowhere to go. So these two beads are going, hey, I still got support here. So your tire ends up being kind of a sloppy donut rather than a rag doll that's self-destructing itself. Instead of the Tyron Bands, and this wheel was large enough that this poor guy had to buy two of these. I only had to buy one. Two of these for my motor coach was $1,740. So this poor guy had to spend $3,500 bucks.
Wow.
Well, on this design here, the tire bead is captured in between this distance on each side, and this part here takes up all of the tire, and the tire is riding around here with some air gap, and in a flat condition, not only is the bead kept from flopping off and your tire turning into a rag doll, but this is supporting the weight of the coach. You'll notice that the rim theoretically won't be damaged, whereas in a flat condition here, this you're going to be riding on the rim and the bead and everything. So this will be shot by the time you're done. Whereas in a flat, you'll be riding on this, which has the outer layer of the tire on it. So the chances of you not having a calamity are a lot better with the yellow gadget rather than the black one. And that's why I gave up on the black one and I bought the yellow one. So what we're having put on now, you can see there's a heck of a difference. This width here of this thing, you can see that it's probably almost 4 inches. This width will sit down in the wheel well, and now it will stick up past the wheel well, and eventually it will actually stick up past the rim, so that if I would get a flat, I will be riding on the rubber on the outside and some of this plastic on the outer rim, and will protect the rim from being damaged, and will give you a longer time period to actually ride on the outside of the tire without it disintegrating. Some of the videos that I've seen on this, they show you driving on the tire for miles. Obviously, if you get a flat, you're going to pull over in the closest spot you can that's safe. I doubt I would be tempted to drive a mile to a tire store. I'd probably just be happy that I was able to get over to the side of the road. Yes, okay, that sounds good. All right, thanks, Angie. I appreciate helping me out here. I'll make sure I relay what we talked about to our viewers, and we'll see you at the Tampa RV show in a few weeks. All right, see ya. Bye-bye. Well, folks, I was able to work some pricing out, special for the Our Journey in Miles viewers, for the new Rettroband run flat system that is available exclusively only at national indoor RV centers. Now, first I have to explain to you, I get exactly 0.00 cents for anything I'm doing or saying for national indoor RV. That particular company, in the 2.5 years that we've been traveling, has been so nice for us to work with, and has been so great, welcoming to full-timers like us. We did not buy our rig from them. We come pulling in with our Dutch Star, and the first question out of their mouth is, hey, how can we help you? Not, where did you buy your rig from? So that's part of the reason why I always talk about them on our channel. They're not the cheapest outfit around. You wouldn't expect that from somebody that's got spectacular equipment and really great locations. But when I was working on this Rettroband video, it was such a great product, and we had such a great time putting it together that by the time I was ready to publish the video, I thought I have to see if I can contact somebody at National Indoor to see if I can get some better pricing for you guys. And I ended up ultimately talking to ANGIE MORELL, who's the Director of Relationship Sales at National Indoor RV. Her telephone number is 214-392-1100. Now, the pricing I was only able to secure between now and the end of the Tampa RV show, which is January 19th, 2020. And for all I know, when you go to the show, you might be able to get the same pricing, $250 discount off. But the beauty of me telling you about this pricing now is that if you're not going to the Tampa RV show, you can in fact get that pricing over the phone by mentioning that you saw it on our channel, Our Journey in Miles. And here's the key: you can get this pricing at any of their 4 locations throughout the United States. So if you're near the Vegas store, or they're in their Phoenix, Arizona store, or their store in Texas, or their one in Georgia, you'll be able to get the $250 discount as long as you book your appointment and possibly even pay for them prior to you showing up. I don't know the exact details. The Rettrobands right now are a pretty hot commodity. They're kind of like the Bose speakers of run-flat devices. The price is what it is. You either get it or you don't. So to be able to have an opportunity to save at least $250 is pretty good. Now here's some other breaking news, is that one additional size to cover 2 tire sizes, the 255 and the 305, that gadget, which isn't available right now, is actually in design, and it's going to be out in late spring. And you will also be able to get the $250 discount on that, and then the pricing is going to be announced. Now this little sheet that I'm reading from, I'm going to put on the screen here so you don't have to write anything down. You don't have to remember anything. I've got Angie's name down on here and her phone number. You would call her to set up to have these put on to get this discount. From the sounds of it, you can schedule this when you're riding through on your next maintenance, as long as they know that you're grabbing this special while the getting's good. So once again, I was glad I was able to get this for you. Didn't get anything for this. Nothing's going in my pocket, but I'm happy to help you guys to get safe and be as happy with this product as I am.
When do they have to purchase it by?
Well, good question, Sue. They would have to purchase it between the time they're viewing this video and January 19th, 2020. Now, they are also going to be installing these at some of the major shows that National Indoor will be at. So when you call Angie, as long as you buy these things by January 19th, you'd be able to schedule this at your convenience to have them put on. It's kind of a commitment that's needed on both ends to make this happen. Sounds like a pretty awesome deal. Well, let's get back to regular programming, Sue. So here I am, clipboard in hand, recording all of the tire serial numbers and the DOT codes. Now, the DOT code is explained in the Michelin RV tire manual that I think every RV owner should have, and you can probably order it online. I'll have a screenshot of it shortly in the video here. But the important number that you want to worry about is the one that's shown on the screen right now, and that's the 2819. Working with Nirvc Tire was awesome because they took it serious that I needed to have fresh tires because I was investing so much in these tires. So before I showed up, they told me the date code of all 6 of the tires that I was going to be purchasing, and trust me, they were all fresh. Now you will have to endure the sad stories from the Michelin tire dealers on how big the tires are and how they make them in batches and how they'll run out of them if you don't order them, in a timely manner. And some of that is actually true. You typically don't want to wait till the end of the year, because as they're figuring out when their next production run is going to be for these giant tires, they pretty much try to pick and choose the exact moment to do this by gauging when literally all the tires are exhausted in all of the warehouses in the US. The day you're installing your tires is your best opportunity to record all of the serial numbers of the tires and the date codes. Now, on new tires, you can ask your tech to put the DOT code numbers on the outboard side so you can always read them if you would misplace all of your paperwork. Likewise, your tandem wheels, then you would want the tires flipped so that if you crawl under there, you at least have a 180-degree opportunity to see what the date code is. Keep in mind that if you're moving tires around from the front to the tag axles, like I do in this example, that even though the tires don't start out as directional tires, where you have to watch which way you mount them from a rotation standpoint, that once they've been in service for a while, it was recommended by the Michelin people that I keep that tire on the same side so it's rotating in the same direction. So this is the point where you'll be glad that you recorded all of these DOT date codes when the going was good and it was easy for you to see these numbers, because you have to visit eventually the Michelin tire website and you have to enter your name and contact information with all of the different date codes for all of the different tires on your vehicle. So you ask yourself, why do you have to do this? Well, if a problem ever develops with these tires from a design and safety standpoint, it will allow them to identify who has these tires, and they would be able to contact you. And if there was any recourse or exchange program, you would be first in line to be contacted, rather than the people that just show up at a tire shop with a problem and they find out about a design defect the hard way. Since I understood the date codes, it was easy for me to determine which were the two newest tires, which of course you would put on the front of your rig. In this next scene here, you'll see James starting to install what I've called affectionately the gadgets, but they're actually a little gearbox that allows the installer to rotate the hex nut on the gadget when they're installing this thing, to be able to rotate that threaded rod, which then brings the two halves together. He has to stuff this thing into the tire, partially assembled around the rim. And I think what we're going to see here is he's positioning it now to put the second of the two gadgets that go in there. And he ends up putting the pins in and starting it just a few threads on one side, and then hopes to engage it within a few threads on the other side. Now, James was so good. He made this look so easy. I almost didn't catch it on camera. And I'm certain that there are a few people that have installed as many as these things as he has, because he made it look really, really easy. Now that both gearboxes are installed, he's going to gingerly use an impact wrench and bring up each of the two connections into a tight situation. He was very, very patient and just babied it along, which with me watching there was great, because I got a very high confident level that they were installed straight to the world and correctly.
pulls in, it pulls up in the drop zone. It's centered on the wheel right now.
Mark inspecting.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I'm telling you, I'm really looking at it hard. You can tell you got a good guy working on your stuff when he arranges everything all organized like that. Well, the tires are full now, and it's off to the dynamic spin balancing, which technically I don't have to do because I have Centramatic balancing discs, but I chose to do it anyways. There's a number of university tire stores in the Georgia-Athens area. This is the one that is positioned on Mitchell Bridge Road. This place is non-stop action. They're bringing cars in for repairs, cars in for tires. They've got them lined up along the road. They got tow trucks bringing them in. We're totally plugging the place up. They'll be working on this side later. You like how you had all your bolts all lined up?
How heavy is it, Mark?
Well, I'm pretty strong, you know. I thought I saw it was 34 pounds, the whole thing with the gadget. We'll see how good my memory is.
Here's Mark helping out. Such a helper.
They have a real rigid, rubbery, high diameter, boingy, bouncy feel. So they're definitely not yellow plastic, like from melted down Toys R Us stuff.
Good job, hon.
Yeah, I'm getting really dirty working on my tire change. This is the third time we've had work done on the back tandem axle areas, and although they show up with 20 and 25 ton jacks, it's simply so much easier to use our hydraulic system and then just safely support the frame with a jack stand. So many times on our channel I've talked about Fifi, and I love Fifi, and I always say no Fifi, no RVing. But there comes a time where your man card is in jeopardy many times, and I'm thinking even using my Fifi, once again, it's in jeopardy. Because you know what? This is a piece of junk. Check out the Fifi that they have at this tire store. I'm going to find out where they got this, and I'm going to get this one. Because you know what they always say, bigger is better. This would be a good time for me to talk about the Centramatic balancing discs. That's this thing right here. You can see that it's basically a large piece of sheet metal that is stamped with the appropriate holes. Looks like there's a dual pattern in there for some even larger studs. These are typically put on semis, and in that round tube around the outside is a viscous proprietary fluid filled with something similar to like a lead shot that is suspended in that fluid, and dynamically on the fly, every single RPM that you're traveling after a certain speed, and I don't remember what that is, relatively low, it starts to balance itself. And the beauty of that is that if you have your tires balanced, like I am going to right now, that if a weight would fall off, this thing will pick up the slack and basically rebalance it, and it'll fine tune it so your tires are always perfectly balanced. Beauty of these things that I did not know is that I had a flat tire one time, and as inconvenient as it wasn't this one, it was that one. And when the tech came out and put a new tire on, because it was roadside service, he was not able to balance it right away. And because I had the Centramatic balancing discs on that axle, I have one for this set of tires, and then on the other side of the coach I have another disc, and then I have one on each side for the tag, and then way in the front, each of the front wheels also had a disc that I showed you before. But what it allowed me is it allowed me to have that tire put on, and if I wanted to be anal retentive, I could have then made a trip to a tire store soon after that and had that tire balanced. But at that point it was ludicrous. You don't have to do that. When I called Centramatic up to see if I should be balancing my tires, they said, well, it's up to you, and it certainly can't hurt, but that was the whole point of these things, is to pick up the slack. So I've kind of got a belt and suspenders going on here. I'd like you to take a look at this sheet here that was taken from the Michelin tire book that I've suggested that you get and have sent to you. We'll show you the progression of the different designs of tires. Now you'll notice that if you watch my cursor here, the tires that came on my rig were the Michelin XZA1s. And I found out this number, which is very important, that I've got written down in the bottom here, this 489. That's actually the revolutions per mile that the tire travels. Now, when I had a flat about 1 year after I owned the coach, I told them the size tire I had. I told them that it was a Michelin tire. I told them it was an XZA1. And that's when they informed me that the XZA1 had been replaced by the XZA2, because as you can see in my diagram here, that it is the progression of the design of the tire was marching along this way. What I didn't know at the time is I didn't know these two bottom numbers. I didn't know that I was unintentionally putting a tire on that had 492 revolutions per mile. So if you can imagine this, on my rear drive axle, which has got a pumpkin and two axle shafts in it, one of those tires was operating 3 more revolutions per mile than the other 3 were. So whatever torture and struggling and skidding was going on back there, I did not even know about. And that cannot be good for your rear differential. When I found this out and I contacted Michelin about that, they told me, no, you shouldn't do that. You should be matching the exact diameters and the number of revolutions per mile. And I said, well, what's my solution here? You don't make the XZA1s anymore, and if you do, they're probably 4 or 5 years old, sitting in a warehouse somewhere. And their comment was, oh, well, you're supposed to replace all 4 tires back there, if that situation happens. So all of a sudden, a tire change back there becomes 4 times $900 or $3,600, which is ridiculous. Well, as I dug deeper, I saw in the literature that they being Michelin, it said that they allowed for as much as a 1/4 inch difference in diameter. And if you use these two numbers, this 489 and the 492, it in fact back calculates into 0.254 inches, I believe it was, difference in diameter. So they do squeak within their own parameters that they talk about deep into the literature. I'm sure there's situations because of you being on the road and you can't get a Michelin tire because you just broke down in the parking lot of a Toyo or a Continental tire company, and they're going to put the exact size on your rig. At least in your mind you thought it was the exact one. If this ever happens to you and you're going to mix and match tread patterns, matching, say for instance, a Michelin with a Toyo or a Continental. At the very least, on your drive axle, at least try to get from the tire company what the revolutions per mile is, because you can see in this example something as close as 489 to 492 was literally at the limit that the tire company wanted, just from a control and a wear standpoint. God knows what it's doing to your pumpkin if it would be much more than that. Okay, here's a perfectly scale model that I lovingly drew how our 2014 Dutch Star looked when it first came off the assembly line and was delivered and purchased by the new owner in November of 2013. You'll see that the date codes on these tires was 1913. The 13 is the year, the 19 is the week the tire was born. The 489 revolutions per mile is what this XZA1 was designed to in its original design configuration. Now on my particular Dutch Star, the tires are 315s all the way around, 22.5-inch diameter, 315 R80s. So this is the time when the happy music should be queued up, because Mark and Sue bought the Dutch Star in June of 2017, and we christened it by the name of Myles, M-Y-L-E-S. That's why we have our channel named Our Journey in Miles. Well, at this time in June of 2017, the tires were 4 years and 1 month old, and it seemed like a good average for people that were erring on the side of caution was 6 years. So I knew 2 years down the road I was going to have to open my wallet. I immediately decided that, at least on the front, I wanted to start with new tires, and I wanted to put the Tyron Tire Bands in as a safety device in case I would get a blowout on the freeway. But when it was all said and done, I unknowingly had the XZA2s on there. I had 492 revolution per mile tires in the front, which was totally fine. Having 489 revolution tires in the back, because there's no axle that connects the back tires to the front tires, so it really doesn't matter. Now, this example here, entitled Our $800 Flat, talks about when we were in a repair facility one time, and literally the day before we were ready to leave, we energized our tire pressure monitoring system, and of course it was raining and it was cold, and it told me I had no air in one of my tires. Now, because I didn't get an alarm, and because in fact the sensor didn't even show up on my monitor, I immediately thought that my tire sensor system was a pile of junk, and I was almost ready to not heed its warning. But I thought about it for a second, and we were only a few miles from getting on to the Atlanta rush hour traffic freeway to get out of the repair facility that we're in. So I thought, okay, I'll go out and check it. Well, I kicked the tire and I banged around on it. It was like hard as a rock, but something told me I better get my gauge out. Well, the gauge that I have actually hooks up to my Vi-Air system, my air compressor, so I kind of have to set the whole thing up for it to work halfway decent. And I did that, and it's raining and it's cold, and lo and behold, driver's side inside drive axle had 0 psi on it. I had a tire tech come out, and when they took the tire off, it was kind of disconcerting how difficult, let's say, it is for them to definitively find where the air leak was. It's more of a by guess and by gosh an optical technique. Because the tires are so big and they're so giant, you literally can't put them in a giant tank of water and watch for air bubbles. So once this guy had this tire off and he thinks he found where the leak was, and he told me that he could repair it, but he can't guarantee if it's going to be okay. It was at that time, especially because now remember the tire was another year old. So now the tire's about 5 years old. I just bailed on the tire and I said, okay, put a new tire on. And that's when he put the XZA2 on. Remember, at this time, I still did not know about the revolutions per mile trick. And he put on the 492 revolution per mile tire right next to my 489 revolution tire. And technically, I shouldn't have done that. And technically, he should have told me I shouldn't have done that. I think at the very least, the conventional wisdom is we should have put an additional XZA2 on that side. When they come out and put a tire on like this in the parking lot, that tire will not be balanced. So if you don't have Centramatic balancing discs like I have, like was talked about in the beginning part of this video, you will have to immediately, after you're done getting this tire on, plan into your agenda to have everything all taken apart again on this side and pull that tire out and balance it. I never balanced this tire after it was put on, and I never had any vibration at all on this axle. So here's what the situation looks like now, restarting the tire clock on Myles. And we did this on November of 2019. Our tires at that time had 43,500 miles on them. They were about 6.5 years old. So it was at this time that we decided to go to National Indoor RV Centers, which is the sole supplier at this time for the Rettroband tire run flat system. It's a gadget that's made by Craig International Ballistics out of Australia. National Indoor RV Centers has 2 excellent videos that were actually shot by ANGIE MORELL, I believe her name is, and one of them shows a little bit about Craig's ballistics and the background and design of the run flat device. And then another one, I believe, actually shows some of the intricacies of putting it together and putting it on. So you'll want to go to the National Indoor RV Center's website, poke around on there, and you'll find out plenty about this particular device. So we put it on the front with brand new X-Line Energy Coach tires that had 491 revolutions per mile rating. I then decided to normalize my drive axle by replacing all 4 of those tires so that I have all identical sizes on that axle. The tires in the front that were only 2 years old, I moved to the tag axle. So let's go to the next screen and see what this whole shooting match ended up costing me. After I used the FMCA discount, the tire ended up being $834 each for the X-Line Energy Coach tires, and they were size 315 R80 by 22.5 in diameter. To balance each of the tires and mount and dismount and put a new steel valve core and stem in was $61 total per tire. Now in the front, the Rettrobands were $4,500 list. So that's $2,250 per side. So the front tires each were $31.45 dressed out each as they sat. So then this $895 per tire I applied then to each of these other positions. Now in the back, you'll remember on the tag axle here, I took the tires off that were previously only 2 years old from the front. I put them in the back. So the grand total down here for this renewal of all of my tires, and including the Rettroband run flat safety system that added $4,500 list, I walked out of there $9,992 lighter. Really glad I saved that $8 because, you know, then I don't have to use the next digit on my cost sheets, which I'll be working on pretty soon.